You're listening to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, the show that proves no one stumbles upon success ever. With your host, Lou Need. Every Mondays and Thursdays, we deliver cold hard evidence behind the power of a robust morning routine. Get ready to be transformed by the renewal of your mind.
Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lou Need, and today I'm elated. I'm excited. I have another doctor in the house, Dr. Marcia Harris. She is a physician with over 4 decades of experience transforming women's health. Now, she is a true pioneer in hormone optimization. She introduced bioidentical hormone therapy to New York for over 20 years ago and has helped over 10,000 women regain energy, vitality, confidence through her signature Total Transformation Reset program. And she does this just optimizing hormone and giving her wealth of background in medicine. So I'm really excited to have her on here today. So with no further ado, Dr. Harris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me, Dr. Lou Need.
My absolute pleasure. Now, I love a hero's journey. I know you went to Cornell. I know you went to Columbia. And so tell us about how you got started into this field. Like, what's the hero's journey that got you here to go to medical school and then focus on that? That's a very specific niche, right?
Well, my mother died in childbirth when I was 7.5 years old. After having had a C-section, she bled out.
Oh, no.
At the time, I used to say I wanted to be a surgeon so that other little girls and boys would not lose their mommies. Now, of course, that went away. By the time I got to college, it was, I wanted to be an actress. Wanted to be on Broadway, wanted to be on television. So I was a speech and drama major. And then halfway through college, my father sent the money to pay for school and sent me a letter saying, do you see anybody looking like you? We're talking about the 60s now. Mm. Yeah, that's how old I am. Okay. And we're talking about the 60s. And he sent the money and said, do you see anybody looking like you on television or on Broadway? So at that point, I sent him back the money, by the way, but I changed my major and came back to the sciences, came back to medicine. I worked for a year or two after college, then went back to medical school, got into Columbia, full scholarship, left there, I first did internal medicine, but decided that it was not exciting enough for me. I really wanted to deliver babies and that type of thing. And I was the first Black female to train in OBGYN at Cornell, at the New York Hospital, Weill Medical Center. In 1971, 72, the early 70s, when I showed up there, they didn't have a clue what to do with me because I would walk in and say, I'm here to admit you to the hospital. And they'd look me up and down and ask me to get them a bedpan or get them some towels or get them some water, because that could be the only reason I could be there.
Right.
And then, I'd say, I'm the doctor. You're the doctor? Yes, I'm the doctor. So it's been really interesting. As a matter of fact, in those days, OBGYN was an old boys club. And as an old boys club, I said I was the first Black female. I was the 8th female, period. There were only 7 females ahead of me to train in that program. And Cornell is the second oldest hospital in the country. All right. So go figure.
Right. True pioneer. Indeed. Congratulations.
There were guys on staff who wouldn't scrub with me. When I was a junior, they'd say, give me a senior. When I was a senior, they'd say, give me a junior. But you know what? Karma. I was the administrative chief resident. So whether they liked it or not, that last year they had to deal with me. Mm-hmm. And of course, I left there and opened the practice immediately.
Yes. And I understand you opened the practice because you were super frustrated with how menopause was being treated, how the whole system was set around that.
That wasn't until later. I actually practiced OBGYN for 30 years before that. I've been out of medical school 50 years, So I practiced then regular OBGYN, delivering babies and that type of thing. And then when I started going through menopause in my late 40s is when that whole frustration thing came in. And frustration is not the word, because we're actually treated as second-class citizens. There is no research done on us. We're treated like little men or younger men. All the research is done on men, and then they try to extrapolate it to us, and we're different. Hormones, which is the other thing, right around the turn of the century, because as an OBGYN resident and in medical school and residency, they taught us about menopause. My generation of doctors got taught about menopause. But here comes the Women's Health Initiative study, and that just threw everything out the window. I'm sure everybody knows the story where headlines, hormones cause breast cancer and cause dementia and all of the above, without looking at the data. And that just threw everything out the window, completely out the window after that. And we're still paying for that. There's a whole generation of women who could have been helped, but weren't because of that study.
Yeah, and that's what led your frustration to actually create the thriving insurance-free practice to help women get real results. Before I get into that, I want to go back to your story about women, about how your mom bled out post C-section. How common is that? Because I had a very similar experience.
It is not common at all. It is very uncommon. Now, my mother had sickle cell anemia, and this was her third pregnancy. I was the first. She lost the baby three years after me and was told, don't get pregnant again because you're going to die. And 4 years later, got pregnant and died, So I was not aware what I know now, obviously, then, and even, later as a young adult and what have you. But I just knew that I didn't want other little boys and girls to lose their moms.
Yeah, no, that's truth right there. And a lot of time I find it's the we have to advocate. Black women have to advocate for themselves so much when it comes to healthcare, especially like pregnancy era. It shouldn't be the case, but it is. You have to be ahead of the game and know your stuff when you walk into these clinics or hospitals.
Which is also one of the problems, because even accomplished, I'm sure you heard the story, Serena Williams had a major problem with the daughter. Serena Williams. And even though she was Serena Williams, they didn't listen to her. The woman who was the 4-star general again, and she actually was a bleed out as well. Again, she went back to the hospital 3 times after the delivery, 3 times. And 3 times they dismissed her. Yeah. Nobody listened. They totally and completely dismissed her. And when she went back the 4th time, they couldn't save her. We have to advocate for ourselves. And that's one of the reasons things like what you're doing and what I'm getting into in terms of getting it out there, we have to get women to know that they're not to accept no. If a practitioner is not listening to you, find one that does. We have to make sure that we take care of us, which is the other thing. As women, we take care of everybody else.
That's true.
We take care of the partners, the children, the bosses, the pastors, the doctors, the man in the street. We don't take care of ourselves. And charity, I don't know if it's in the Bible, but wherever it came from, charity does begin at home. You've got to start with you, because if you're not here, if you're not around, if you're not well, You can't help anybody else.
You can't give. You cannot. For me, I think I sat in the ER and bled out and passed out for like 8 hours before they actually put me in to realize. I passed out several times. I was like, well, I'm getting out. And then flatline. It was just like insane. And I remember early on in my pregnancy, I fired my first doctor because not only she was young, but she was just clueless. I think I asked about choline. What's the benefit of it? She's like, I've never heard of it. I was like, okay, you're fired.
Okay.
Good for brain health and helping baby develop. You don't know about that. And yeah, but it goes to show, as you said, it happened to Serena Williams. It happens to everyone. Like, you really can't go and say, here I am. I'm gonna take everything you feed me, spoon feed me, and you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to do the research. You got to check with others that have your best interest in mind.
Yeah, you have to. We have to. And we have to get women into that frame of mind and into that modus operandi. Yeah. We have got to get them to understand that if it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to me. You've got to advocate for yourself. We have to advocate for ourselves.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's ongoing, right? Because so that's the pregnancy, that's the younger age. And then you get to 40 and 50s, you get to menopause. Now you say that the medical establishment is wrong about menopause. And it's failing women a whole lot. So let's talk about that. Unpack that for us.
It definitely is wrong, and it definitely is failing women. There are 400 functions which are dependent on our hormones. There are hormone receptors on every single cell in the body. So every single function in the body is affected by some hormone or other. Not all of them by the sex hormones, but thyroid, insulin. I mean, some hormone or other affects every single thing that happens to us. Now, when somebody comes in to a doctor and their thyroid is not functioning properly, when their thyroid hormone is either too low or too high, it's fixed. When somebody comes in and their insulin's not functioning properly, it's fixed. Why is estrogen and progesterone and testosterone different? If it's not functioning, guess what? It needs to be fixed.
It's going to fail. The system's going to fail.
So literally the whole establishment. And then back to the Women's Health Initiative study at the turn of the century, there was this big study, and the woman who was in charge of the CDC at that time, and it was a good idea. It was a really good idea, because up to that point, we thought that because we knew that estrogen, for example, affected our vessels, and that testosterone affected our muscles, and that both estrogen and progesterone affected our bones. Estrogen actually maintains our bones. Testosterone actually builds our bones, and all the things, dementia, same thing, brain, same thing. We knew, or we thought, that this was the case and this was happening. The woman in charge of the CDC said, we know this, we think so, but it's never been studied. Let's study it. And that's when the Women's Health Initiative study came along. However, it was so flawed in terms of the way they set it up that it did much, much, much more harm than good, because they stopped it. It started in 98. They stopped it in 2002. And I'm telling you, I know where I was when John F. Kennedy was shot and killed. I remember that day. I can tell you what I was wearing. I know where I was, 9/11, for example. Remember that day. It'll never be out of my mind. I know where I was, what I was doing the day the Women's Health Initiative study hit the New York Times headlines and the Wall Street Journal headlines. If my phone didn't ring 150 times, it didn't ring one time. It was amazing. When I say everybody panicked, and it was too bad. Now, here we go. This was front page news, headline news, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, within 2 years, they debunked every single one of the things that they said that day was completely debunked within a couple of years. Well, where was it? Page 50 in a 2-column, page 50 in the newspaper in a 2-column article. There are doctors right now who still don't know that study was debunked. 7 out of 10 gynecologists, forget about doctors, even the gynecologists, because what they stopped doing is they actually stopped even teaching about menopause. They literally just cut it out of the curriculum. Now, thank heaven, with Halle Berry and Oprah and Nicole Kidman and what's her name, Reese Witherspoon, and all the actors, actresses, and the big, Tamsin Fadal, and all the influencers and everybody getting in on the act, it's starting to come back and people are starting to listen. Even more importantly, women are starting to say, this is ridiculous. I need help. I need to go and get it. And I am so thrilled that's happening because guess what? It's time.
Yep. It is.
It's time.
It is time to turn the leaf over. Now, Total Transformation Reset Program actually plays really nicely into that. Tell us what it is and how it's different from what you typically receive.
Well, the my Total Transformation Reset Program came out of a second, wake-up call. When I was going through menopause, I was actually presenting at a conference in Atlanta, and I woke up one morning with a Mack truck sitting on my head with a blood pressure when the paramedics got there of 255 over 144. 255 over 144. I was unconscious for 36 or more hours, and I was hospitalized for 10 days. When I came back to New York, I decided at that time that all the money in the world and all the fame and all the whatever was not worth dying for. Because up to that point, I had been guilty of doing exactly what I just said, taking care of everybody else. I was not taking care of me. I came home after that hospitalization. Number one, I kicked out the husband. He was the major cause of my stress, packed his things, checked him into a hotel. Okay. Packed his things, checked him into a hotel where he was for 3 or 4 months because he thought I was going to say, come home. Never did. I lost 50 or 60 pounds in the next 5 or 6 months because I had gained 50 pounds and ignored it. I kept saying, I got to check my thyroid. I got to check my hormones. I knew something was wrong, but I was so busy taking care of everybody else that I ignored all the symptoms. I ignored it completely. All right. So I did that. I stopped eating meat. I went to a plant-based diet. And over that period of time, over that next 3 or 4 or 5 months, I completely changed everything about what I did. And in changing it in terms of what I did with me, I also changed the way I practiced. Mm-hmm. That's when I plugged into, for want of a better word, integrative medicine. And I say integrative because if I get hit by a truck, don't pour juice on me. Don't give me vitamins. Don't tell me to go exercise or to get 8 hours sleep or to do all the lifestyle things that we tell people. Please take me to the nearest emergency room and please do what needs to be done to save my life. However, lifestyle is so important. And that's one of the pieces that's missing. Everybody thinks they can continue to smoke and drink and not take care of themselves, not exercise, not take care of themselves, and everything's going to be fine. And it's not. So that's where my total transformation program started. I went at that point in time and I got trained and certified in what we call anti-aging medicine, right? Which is, I never know whether to say integrative, holistic, complementary, because it's all of the above.
All the above.
All of the above, So that's when that program came about. And as I said, midlife is time. If not before, definitely you have to do it at midlife. And it's a good time to do it because let's face it, what happens at midlife? The kids are gone. Empty nest syndrome, you're home. What else happens at midlife? Your periods are gone. You don't have to worry about getting pregnant. You can focus on what you want to do, what you want to focus on. It's a great time if you weren't doing it before to plug in to the system, get rid of all the ancillary noise and start taking care of you, which is what happened.
Is it inevitable, the hormone imbalance? Is it going to happen? Like, just wait for it?
It's going to happen. Your great-great-great-grandmother and mine did not live past 50. Matter of fact, 1200, the 12th century, 13th century, people didn't live past 35. And then, the 19th century, people didn't live past 50. The average age of death for a woman now is 86. And for a man is 79 or 80. We're living a third to a half of our lives in menopause. It's inevitable. You live long enough, it's going to happen.
Wow. And you don't want to be miserable for that.
You do
for that portion of your life. So some of the symptoms you mentioned is gaining weight. Okay, yes, we lose our menses. What are some of the symptoms that people could be ignoring and the body's going through kind of?
Well, it's interesting. 80% of people have some symptoms. Some people, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 things. Some people, all 34, there are 34 primary symptoms. There are people who come in, and I don't have a slip near me, but I have the 34 on a slip, which they're asked to check mild, moderate, severe, mild, moderate, severe. There are people who come in where every single one is checked. Everyone is checked. And then there are people who come in who, have 4 or 5 or have 3 or 4 or 5 severe and then some others mild and what have you. But 80% of women have symptoms. 10 or 15% have no symptoms at all. And 10 or 15%, as I said, have everything. Well, I was one of the have everything people. Mm-hmm. I used to get the average woman now, I would say, gets 7 or 8, maybe, hot flashes a day. I used to get 20. And I mean severe. I would rip off the lab coat, rip off the jacket. I remember one day being in a board meeting at New York Hospital and looking at the old man next to me and saying, I hope you've seen boobs before because this blouse got to go. Okay. No, I didn't take it off, but it sure was tempting. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. It's amazing. Most people have symptoms. And the other thing is, even the people who do not have symptoms still need the hormone replaced. Hormone replacement is very, very important. Now, the old stuff, the pregnant mare's urine, Premarin, pregnant mare's urine, which is where they get the estrogen from, and what they was used, for example, in the Women's Health Initiative study, we mostly don't use that anymore. What we're using is Bioidentical, which is all plant-based. It's from edamame and soy and Mexican wild yam and potatoes, and it's all plant-based. And it's the same molecule. It's the exact molecule that our bodies make. So it reacts as the same way, and our bodies recognize it. So it doesn't have the risks. It has all the benefits with very, very, very little risk, you know. So it's really important that it gets replaced. Now, there are doctors out there who are still telling people, no, you don't need that. But if your thyroid hormone is too low or too high, they're going to replace it. If your insulin is not working, as I said before, they're going to fix it. This needs to be fixed as well because it is protective. We know it's protective for your heart. We know it's protective for your brain. We know it's protective for your bones. It actually, the testosterone, and remind me to talk about that because a lot of women are only being given estrogen and progesterone. And whereas estrogen and progesterone are the uniquely female hormones, testosterone is our most abundant hormone. We have more testosterone, even as women, than we have estrogen. We have 10 times less than men. Men have 10 times more testosterone than we do, but we have more testosterone than we have estrogen. And it does for us the same thing it does for the men. Energy, muscle toning, building bone, libido, sexual desire, all of the above that it does for the men, it does for us as well. So the people out there getting just estrogen and getting just estrogen and progesterone are again being shortchanged.
Yeah. It's good knowledge to know. It's good to know that you need to implement that into your practice as well. Thank you for sharing the signs not to ignore, because a lot of people just afraid, like, they're getting weight, they can't lose it. It's taking more effort to work out than it did when they were younger, and just like thinking it's just getting older. Just
the thing is, those are the 34 primary ones, but there's a secondary list of at least 20, and then there's a tertiary list. There are things which you work somebody up and nothing shows up except when you're finished, you attribute it to menopause, So the vasomotor symptoms, which are all, the estrogen dependent things, the hot flashes and night sweats and that stuff. And then the brain fog and the insomnia and the fatigue, all of that set. And then the testosterone related ones, the energy and the lack of libido and lack of sexual desire and vaginal dryness and all of those. I mean, the 34 that are on that primary list are bad enough because whichever ones you have as a woman, trust me, it does not make your quality of life good.
Yeah. For some of the treatment, and as we know, we talk about morning routines and some of the healthy habits we can put in place. What are some things that women can do to get ahead of this? Minimize your stress. I know you laugh at that. Always a go-to, isn't it?
That actually does help. Again, we take care of everybody except ourselves. I can't say that enough. We have to bring it home. We have to start with us. All right? We have to start with us. Now, the second thing is lifestyle is tremendously important. Lifestyle is tremendously important. We have got to address our nutrition. The foods don't have the same nutrition that they had when 50 years ago when I started doing this. 50 years ago when I started doing this, you needed 2 or 3 servings of fruits and vegetables to get all the antioxidants you need. Now it's 16 to 20. The foods, they're growing the crops and depleted soil, and they're not rotating the crops, and it's not the same.
Yeah, and then who has time for that? To sit around eating all the fruits and making sure you're prepping it?
You can't. You eat 16 servings of fruit and vegetables every day. I can't. Nutrition's critically important. We've got to exercise, movement. Okay? We've got to exercise, even if it's just walking. I'm a walker. I used to get up 5:30, 5:45 every morning and hit the road in my area. 5 miles a day, 5 days a week, strength and weights, the other two. And again, this all started after my episode. Prior to that, if I did it, fine. If I didn't do it, fine. I became Pavlovian after that. I made sure that I did everything that I've ever told a patient to do after that episode. All right. Now, even something as simple as water, drinking water. Our cells, up to 70% water, each cell in the body, up to 70% water. If you don't flush the cells, if you don't drink, and I think it's half your body weight in water every day so that you clean out the cells, it makes such a big difference. And hydration is one of the big problems in this country. Most Americans walk around chronically dehydrated. Things like headaches and brain fog, dry skin. There is so many things which could be cured just with drinking enough water. Breathing. Okay. We say fresh air in New York, it ain't fresh, but you still have to breathe. Literally making the effort to take deep breaths, holding it, and then letting it out, and doing that regularly 3 or 4 times a day. So you fill all the alveoli in your lungs, all the lung cells, because most of us, how we breathe, it's shallow. And we only get to here, we only get to halfway, and breathe. Sleep, OMG. Tremendously important. That's when our body repairs itself. When we sleep. If you don't get adequate sleep, you're going to be behind the 8 ball because your body is not going to get repaired. And I can keep on going,
Yeah, you tap into a lot of the stuff that we advocate for here at the Best Morning Routine is, hydration first thing in the morning. You've been asleep for 8 to 9 hours, if you get that, right? So you need to hydrate first thing in the morning to help with not just brain fog, but help you with clarity. Because the brain is 70% agua, 70 plus percent agua. And so you got to put it back in there.
And again, in terms of morning water, you've got to put either lemon juice, electrolytes, you got to put something in it so that, you expand the cells. Would you believe my grandmother, from the time we were little, every morning we got a 16-ounce glass of room temperature water with a lemon squeezed in it.
Nice. Yeah. There's benefits to that. And then you talk about the walking, which is another thing for morning routine. Going out and moving the body and stretching the body gives you energy for the rest of the day. Like it's the tone. It sets the tone really. So tell us about some of your morning routine habits. How do you get up and show up?
I just did.
That's it. Okay.
Drinking the water with the lemon.
Yeah.
First thing, and stretching. Drinking the water and stretching. And then, of course, giving thanks, gratitude, meditation. It is so, so, so important for us to give thanks. Prayer, for those of us who pray, which I do, all of that is just so important.
It does something to the nervous system, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Absolutely. Now, in terms of even things that I don't do, because I do intermittent fasting, so I don't eat breakfast. I haven't eaten breakfast in years. My first meal, 11:30, 12:30. I break my fast with fruit and that type of thing. But protein is tremendously important. If you're going to eat breakfast, make sure that you have protein. Matter of fact, every meal needs to have protein. That's one of the problems and one of the things that becomes important also as we get older, because sarcopenia is not good, is not nice. And that's one of the things also that takes little old ladies out. When they lose their muscles, they fall, they break a hip, they don't live a year.
Yeah.
Don't live a year. So you've got to, what I tell people again is you have got to meet yourself. Look in the mirror and meet yourself. Okay? And if you do that, along with the other things that we've said in terms of the lifestyle changes, but you get up in the morning and you do that, you're going to be way ahead of the game in terms of getting to,
advocating and getting over dealing with menopause. It's inevitable, but you can get ahead of it, as you say. And thank you so much for sharing the tips, the symptoms, and the signs to ignore that we should not ignore. Tell us, Dr. Harris, how can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
Oh, easily. drmarciaharris.com. Okay. And I do have a deliverable if your listeners are interested. I have what I call my ultimate menopause survival toolkit. The ultimate menopause survival toolkit, which is free. And I've got all kinds of trackers in there and all kinds of cheat sheets and, interesting stuff to help, especially midlife women. But again, remember, perimenopause begins as early as 39 or 40. So even for younger women, it's you can still plug in earlier and start doing what you need to do.
Yes, thank you. We would be very much appreciated. Thank you for sharing that. It's been such a joy having you on the show, Dr. Harris. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. And please continue doing what you're doing. It is so necessary. It is so necessary. And the more, they say you need 7 touch points or 7 to 9 touch points before something hits. All right. Please continue doing what you're doing. It's really important. And it's nice that we're finally starting to do what needs to be done for ourselves.
Having that conversation where we're sitting at the table now. We're here. It's been such a joy. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, morning enthusiasts, that's it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. If you love the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast, we'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes or Google Play. While you're at it, tell a friend about the show. Be sure to visit bestmorningroutineever.com and our Facebook group to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic free bonus content. Until next time,